Oh, hey, Ryker.
Oh, hey.
How's it going?
Not too bad.
Haven't seen you for a while.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good. Excellent. Hey, thanks for joining us for part 2.
Yeah. I'm James.
Wow.
Oh my gosh. This is James. I'm Ryker.
I'm James. Who are you?
I'm Ryker. I'm
Hi,
definitely Ryker.
I hope so.
This is part 2.
On Wednesday, but it's Monday.
Yeah.
But for you, it's Wednesday. For Ryker, it's definitely Monday. So we're picking up from Sunday, and if you're at church on Sunday or checking things out, or you watch the live stream, you will know that I totally went off script, didn't follow my notes.
Yeah, and I actually had the notes. I was following along. I'm like,
wait a second, he's not doing what he's supposed to be. And you know what? Okay, just really quick. Usually I don't follow my notes, but I have been getting in a good habit, good discipline lately of making sure that I'm hitting home on the notes. And then Sunday it didn't happen. So we went a totally different road on Sunday. But for you on part 2, I want to make sure that we cover the second section of tools for your toolbox as believers. So when we first went over things last week, we talked about 3 main areas: be confident, operate in 100% grace and 100% truth, and then it's okay to be completely real with God. So those are the 3 things that we covered off on part 1 of this little mini series here. And so today what we want to nail down are the 4 other ones that we want to take home with us, which is listen to God, don't ever settle, carry deep vision and carry deep burden, as well as honor the call to sacrificial service. So we want to dig into there and see what it looks like and see how it goes. And hopefully you can take some of these things home with you and apply them to your life in your walk with the Lord. So we see in Luke chapter 5, when we're talking about listening to God, so that's number 4 here on the list, listening to God. Luke chapter 5, Jesus goes and he tells these guys to go and put out a net. And Jesus doesn't mess around. He's like, here's the deal. Follow me, and it's going to be an adventure. And he goes to these guys, and they're fishermen, and he's encouraging them. They're out on the boat, and they're fishing, and they're doing their thing, and this is their career. This is their craft. They know what they're doing. And here they are. They're fishing all day long, and Jesus yells from the shore, "Yo, what's up, guys?" And they're like, "Hey, how's it going?" Yeah, that's actually what happened. It says this in the Bible.
Oh, yeah.
And then Jesus is like, "Yo, you having a hard time fishing?" And they're like, "Yeah, I can't catch any fish. Bad fishing today." And Jesus is like, "Well, what's up? Why don't you just put your net on the other side?" And then they're all like, "Can you believe this guy? Like, who does this guy think he is? Like, why is he wearing the white robe? And like, what's he up to?" And Jesus is like, "Yeah, put the net on the other side of the boat." What's the other side of the boat? Like, it's 5 feet over. Who cares?
Yeah.
It's gonna be nothing. But they put the net on the other side of the boat, and all of a sudden it gets so full of fish that it's starting to tip the boat over. They can't even get it up. It's breaking the net. It's out of control. And Jesus is like, "Here's the deal. I know what's going on way more than you know what's going on. Mm-hmm. You should listen to me. Drop what you're doing. Follow me on the adventure of a lifetime." Yeah. We are called to always listen to God. Yeah. Tool for your tool belt, listen to God. His ways are always perfect. Always. You can't go wrong. His ways are always about glorifying his Father. So when we follow Jesus, the things that he calls us to do are about giving glory to his Father in heaven. His ways always point out our nature. Our nature is that we're in desperate need for him. Desperately in need of Jesus. So his ways always point that out continuously. And his ways will always bring us to a place of repentance. We realize really quick that in our foolishness, we can go far, far from God thinking we've got it all figured out. But the reality is that we need Jesus desperately. And it brings us to a place of repenting. Repenting means stopping, apologizing, saying, "Man, I'm so sorry that I've been trying to have a go at this on my own. I need to be about what you're about, not what I'm about." And so it's about learning how to walk in humility before God, our King. And when we listen to God, we're always brought to that place of walking in humility, and it's a good place to be in. Mm-hmm. Anything else on that one?
No, I think that's good.
You're good?
Yeah.
Can I hit the next one?
Yeah.
Okay, next one. Don't settle ever. I don't like to settle. I have a hard time settling. If you've been to my house, you'll know that I change my furniture around probably every few months or so. I cannot handle anything just being stagnant or the same. It drives me crazy. My wife and I have bought and sold a ton of houses because we just have a hard time sitting in one place and for one time. We just love change. I love change so much. And I think that's actually a gift that God has given me, I have a hard time settling. In Genesis 11:31 to 32, we hear a little bit about what's going on with Abraham and where things are happening and where things are going. We see that they were brought into this land, and as they go into this land, they settled into this land, and as they settled into this land, the family members and the lineage below him died in this land. And it's very unfortunate to see that there was opportunity to go forward and take land and move ahead, but there's a settling that happened. And what's so important to remember as we look at the scriptures, and you can dig in on your own time to Genesis chapter 11, but when we settle, we lose vision. When we settle, we lose vision. But to step out of settling, we need some fresh vision. We need to know that there is more beyond where we have decided to put our roots in. And sometimes we see the church being in a position of settling. And as Christians, we actually are called to not settle. We're called to be established in our faith, but we're not called to just simply settle, to grow old and to die. We're actually called to be people who move, who go forward, who accomplish, who do things for the sake of Jesus Christ. And if we want to see the church grow and change and expand and actually have influence in our community and the world around us, we don't want to be a people group that just settles, because when you settle, moss starts growing on that. It starts getting old. It gets rusty. Nothing's working anymore. And when we see that things start falling apart, and we are not called to be people who just fall apart and who wither and get old and die. We're actually called to be people who are lively, full of life, and go out there with ambition and vision from the Lord. And that's a beautiful thing that we can step into. And we see here like a dramatic change locally. Like the church has actually been trend-setting locally. What we see here in our city is that everything that's happening in the local church flies in the face of statistics from what we see happening in North America, specifically in Canada, and even more specifically in British Columbia. British Columbia is typically very, very far away from any kind of church attendance or active walking in faith. And we actually see something that's in stark contrast to that here in our community. As the church grows, as young people come to faith, young families are coming to Jesus, first-time believers getting to know who Christ is, that's just not common right now in today's society. And we see the church changing and growing wildly, and it's beautiful. And it comes from being in a place where we don't want to settle. If God's calling us to do something, go out and do it. Don't stay put. Respond in obedience. Go out and do it. And so it's really encouraging to see that this mentality or this attitude of not ever settling actually brings about a change in our immediate community and a change in people's lives as they see an excitement for the gospel. So that's the, what is it, fifth? That's the fifth one on the list. Okay, don't settle ever. Okay, number 6 is carry deep vision and carry deep burden. Jesus wept. Jesus had vision, but he also carried deep burden. We know that the burden of Christ is a light burden, and it's not meant to crush us, but it's a deep burden. We're actually called to have a burden for our community, a burden for our loved ones, our families, our friends. We're even called to have a burden for our enemies. It says in the word to bless those who curse you. We're called to turn the other cheek when we get slapped. Those are ludicrous things to consider, but we're actually called to have a burden of care even for our enemies. We see Jesus weeping over a dead friend. We see Jesus weeping over a community and a city that he knows is going to perish. We see that vision is poured out upon the church to motivate the church, to give drive to the church and to others that are watching what's going on. The vision must have heart, and the vision must be clearly conveyed. So maybe God's been given vision to you, but don't be stagnant with it. You want to show the heart of your vision, and you want to clearly convey the vision to other people. Maybe God's called you as a leader to be set apart from the crowd. It doesn't mean that you're supposed to be a lone ranger. You're supposed to clearly convey the vision that God has laid on your heart, and you'll see the quality of your leadership with how people follow you. If you're just on a charge on your own all day long, you're going to see some challenges happen. You're going to get mad at people who don't follow you. You're going to get frustrated because you think your vision's amazing and people aren't getting on board, so now you're ticked at folks. But the heart of a good leader carries that burden and shares that vision with people, and people get on board with it. And you see that happening. And Jesus did that. Jesus was the ultimate visionary. He had the ultimate burden, so much so that he carried that burden to the cross of Calvary, and he died for our sins. But he also took people on the journey, and he took time to teach them and share with them the burden that was on his heart for the world. And his friends and his followers adopted that. So much so that it started with just a few people, and it turns into tens of thousands and tens of thousands, to even where we see today. The vision of Jesus is to go out, make disciples, and share with them about the message of Christ. And we see that message continuing on to this day, as Jesus had that burden and he shared it with great vision, with deep burden, and it was amazing to watch that he shared it and saw people come along. So I love this quote by a guy named Bishop Ulmer. It says, "Share with them your heart and they will have your vision. Share your vision but not your heart, and the vision will be distorted." What kind of heart has God placed in your chest? What kind of passion has he placed there? Share your heart with people, and they're going to grasp your vision. So church, carry deep vision and deep burden. And finally, number 7 for tools for your tool belt is we see honor the call to sacrificial service. Honor the call to sacrificial service. Acts 2 is amazing. I encourage you to read the entirety of the chapter. But we see the church in their beginning stages committed to selling their goods, their wares, their properties, everything they had, and giving to people who were in need. Regardless of what the need was, there was a giving to people who were in need. Breaking bread with one another in their homes. Have people over for tacos. Yeah. Have people over for food. Have people over for a meal. Break bread with people. It ruins barriers. Any barriers that were once in the way are gone when you start, getting into that pico de gallo and having some nice salsa and crunching some tacos together. All of a sudden, friendships are born out of sharing food with one another. And we see that beautifully represented in the early church in Acts chapter 2. They had community together. They lived with one another. They ministered with each other. They did good deeds in their community. So church, so important. Honoring the call to sacrificial service means that you get to do good deeds even if you don't want to do good deeds. You get to do good deeds as an honor to the call that Christ has placed on your life. So good deeds leads to having goodwill or good favor in the community. When you do good deeds for people, they receive this goodwill, and you as a church or as a person receive goodwill. They might not necessarily appreciate your views or your perspective, but they can't knock you because you've been doing some good in the community. They're like, man, you know what? I got some respect for that guy. He's a little weird, and I don't necessarily see eye to eye, but I can respect where he's coming from. And so you get favor in the eyes of people around you. And as you receive favor, and as the church receives favor, you get opportunity to share the good news. And if you do anything out of that order, it gets all mixed up. If you start pounding people with the Bible, they miss out on the grace that comes from having a relationship first. Yeah. So good deeds leads to goodwill, which then leads to people hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. And that's it. That's the crucial part that we see in the gospel. It's so important. And when you honor the call to sacrificial service, when you choose to give of yourself for the sake of the Lord to the people around you, you see the world begin to change. Give it time. It always takes time. Maybe you used to be a real jerk and a terrible person. It's okay. As Christ changes you and transforms you, over time people see, man, there's some staying power to what's gone on in this person's life. They're not just a bit of dust in the wind. There's some foundation there, and they get to see that foundation comes from Jesus. So church, I hope that this helps you have some tools for your toolbox. Go back to last week's part 2. Check out this week's part 2. And put these things in your tool belt. Yeah. Take them with you. And I encourage you to dig into the scriptures on your own so you kind of know where we're coming from here. Don't just take my word for it. Dig into the word on your own. I want you to see that what's in the Bible is true, and the instructions we get from the word are true and from Jesus, and you can't go wrong when you follow what's in the word. So thanks a lot for checking in today.
Yeah, these are great. I think I'm going to probably try and write these down myself.
You should write them down. Yeah. It's excellent. And if anybody ever wants some notes on this, you can make a note in the comment section below, and we're happy to give you any notes or any tools that you want for your tool belt. We're happy to pass those things on to you.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. I think that's it for this part 2. Good. I'll see you next week.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye.